Welcome to Demo Cloud. In this tutorial, we are going to launch Amazon EC2 instances using AutoScaling. So to define this, there are two steps to follow. So first step is to create a launch configuration. Second step is to create an AutoScaling group. So what is a launch configuration? So a launch configuration is a template that an AutoScaling group uses to launch EC2 instances. So when you create a launch configuration, you specify information for the instances such as the ID of the AMI, the instance type, a key pair, one or more security groups, and a block device mapping. So if you have launched an EC2 instance before, you specify the same information in order to launch the instance. So what is an autoscaling group? So an autoscaling group contains a collection of EC2 instances that are treated as a logical grouping for the purposes of instance scaling and management. For example, if a single application operates across multiple instances, you might want to increase the number of instances in that group to improve the performance of the application, or decrease the number of instances to reduce cost when demand is low. So you can use the autoscaling group to scale the number of instances automatically based on the criteria that you specify, or maintain a fixed number of instances even if an instance becomes unhealthy. So this automatic scaling and maintaining the number of instances in an autoscaling group is a core functionality of the Amazon EC2 AutoScaling service. So let's get started. So the first step is to create a launch configuration. So let's go to EC2. So in the left navigation pane, so there's something called launch configuration under AutoScaling. So click on create launch configuration. So you will be asked to select an AMI, which is a template for the root volume of instance and can contain an operating system, an application server, and applications. So you use an AMI to launch an instance, which is a copy of the AMI running as a virtual server in the cloud. So AMIs are available for various versions of Windows and Linux. So in this tutorial, you will launch an instance running Amazon Linux. So let's select Amazon Linux to AMI. Click select. So you're next asked to choose an instance type. So when you launch an instance, the instance type determines the hardware allocated to your instance. So each instance type offers different compute, memory, storage capabilities, and are grouped in instance families based on these capabilities. So let's select t2.micro. So click on next, configure details. So let's mention the name as lab configuration. Expand advanced details. So for the IP address type, select assign a public IP to every instance. Since we are using a custom VPC, so we need to define this option so that our instances are assigned a public IP address. So click on next, add storage. So we'll make the values as default. Next, click on configure security group. So let's select an existing group which was created as part of a previous demo called web server security group. So click on review. Let's ignore the warning and click continue. So review your choices and then click create launch configuration. You will now be asked to select an existing key pair or create a new key pair. So a key pair is used to provide login access to your instances. So a key pair has already been created for use in this lab. So let's select the key pair called demo to cloud and click on create launch configuration. So your launch configuration has now been created and you will be prompted to create an autoscaling group. So let's click on create an autoscaling group using this launch configuration. So let's define a group name. Let's define it as lab group. So the group size, it starts with 1 instances, and select a network called lab VPC and let's put them in public subnet. And then next click on configure scaling policies. So here we're going to select the default option wherein the auto scaling will keep this group at its initial size. So this means that it will keep one instance always operating. If the instance fails, it will be automatically replaced. Or if you're selecting a second option, it will give you the opportunity to scale, define the minimum and maximum number of instances and the parameters here. So for this demo purpose, let's select the default option and click on next, review, and then click on create autoscaling group and click on close. So autoscaling will launch an Amazon EC2 instance and will maintain the autoscaling group at that quantity. So now that we have created our autoscaling group, let's verify if the group has launched our EC2 instances. So let's select the lab group here. Examine the details at the bottom of the page to view information about the autoscaling group. So click the activity history. The status column contains the current status of your instance. So when your instance is launching, the status column shows in progress. The status changes to successful once the instance is launched. You can click the refresh button to see the current status of your instance. So let's click the instances tab. Okay, so the lifecycle columns contains the state of your newly launched instance. You can see that your autoscaling group has launched your EC2 instance and it is in the in-service lifecycle state. So the health status column shows the result of your EC2 instance health check on your instance. Now let's test the autoscaling. So since the minimum size for our autoscaling group is 1, so therefore, if you terminate the running instance, an autoscaling group must launch a new instance to replace it. So let's test it now. So in the instances tab, if I click on the instance ID, it will be taken to the Amazon EC2 console. So now I would like to go to actions, instance state, and then terminate. And click on yes, terminate. So the instance will change to shutting down. So wait until the instance state changes to terminated. So in the left navigation pane, let's go to autoscaling groups. Click the instances tab. And check the status of the instance. So since the instance got terminated, so after some time, you will see a new instance appear with a status of pending or in service. So let's go to activity history and see it. So if you can see that the instance got terminated, and since the default cooldown for the autoscaling group is 300 seconds, that is 5 minutes, we can see here. So it may take about 5 minutes until you see the scaling activity. So if you can see here, yes, so it's launching a new EC2 instance. So all scaling activities are logged here. So after the scaling activity starts, we can view all the entries for the launch and termination of the instances here, and also an entry for the launch of the new instance, which is visible here now. So if you go to instances, as you can see, the new instance is up and running with healthy status and with the lifecycle as in service. So if you click on the instance ID, it will take to the EC2 console page with up and running. So this is how we define the autoscaling group with the help of launch configuration.